Daniel in the Lion's Den. Bible Stories, Episode 11. The story begins in the days after Babylon had fallen, when a new ruler held power over the great empire. Daniel was no longer a young man. Many years earlier, he had been taken from Judah to Babylon. He had entered a foreign land as an exile, far from Jerusalem, far from the temple, far from the hills and streets of his own people. Yet from his youth onward, Daniel had belonged to the Lord. In Babylon he had served kings. He had learned the language and writings of the Chaldeans. He had stood in courts where gold, power, and pride filled the rooms. He had interpreted dreams and visions when no one else could give the answer. Again and again, Daniel had made clear that wisdom did not come from himself, but from the God of heaven. Kings had risen, kings had fallen, empires had shifted like shadows across the earth. Daniel remained faithful. Now Darius the Mede was ruler over the kingdom. He set 120 princes over the realm, and over them he appointed 3 presidents, so that the king should suffer no damage. Daniel was one of the 3. The work was important. Reports came from many provinces. Tribute had to be counted, decisions had to be weighed, officials needed oversight, and the king needed servants he could trust. Among all these rulers, Daniel distinguished himself. Scripture says an excellent spirit was in him. That excellence was not a loud thing. It showed itself in faithful judgment, clear understanding, honest administration, and steady service. Daniel did not need to flatter the king or grasp for honor. His life had been shaped by years of serving under the eye of God. Darius saw the wisdom in him and thought to set him over the whole realm. That favor stirred envy. The other presidents and princes watched Daniel rise. They saw the king's trust in him. They saw that Daniel's word carried weight. They saw that he was not careless, not corrupt, and not easily moved. If Daniel were placed over the realm, their own ambitions would be diminished. So they sought to find occasion against him concerning the kingdom. They examined his work. They looked for negligence. They looked for dishonesty. They looked for some weakness in the accounts, some secret arrangement, some broken duty, some overlooked command. They searched for anything they might use to accuse him before the king, but they could find none occasion nor fault. Daniel was faithful. There was no error or fault found in him. At last they understood that if they were to find a charge against Daniel, it would not come from corruption in his service. It would have to come concerning the law of his God. The princes gathered together around the king with a plan shaped by flattery. They came before Darius and spoke as though all the rulers of the kingdom were in agreement. They told him that the presidents, governors, princes, counselors, and captains had consulted together to establish a royal statute and make a firm decree. For 30 days, they said, no one should ask a petition of any god or man except the king. Whoever did otherwise should be cast into the den of lions. The request was designed to sound like honor. For 1 month, the king would stand as the only one to whom petitions might be made. No prayer to any god, no request addressed beyond the throne. Only Darius. Only the king's name. Only the king's authority. But beneath the honor was a trap. The men knew Daniel prayed. They knew his faith was not a private habit easily put away for convenience. They knew he would not stop calling upon the Lord because a decree had been written. They were not trying to strengthen the kingdom. They were trying to catch a faithful man in the open practice of his faith. They urged Darius to sign the writing, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which could not be changed. Darius signed it. The ink of the decree turned envy into law. Somewhere in the kingdom, Daniel heard what had been done. He knew the writing had been signed. He knew the danger. He knew the punishment attached to disobedience. He knew that the men who hated him would be watching. Daniel did not mistake the moment. He understood the decree, the trap, and the cost. Then he went into his house. His windows were open in his chamber toward Jerusalem. Jerusalem was far away. Its stones and gates were not before Daniel's eyes. But his prayers still turned toward the city of God's covenant, toward the place where the Lord had set his name, toward the hope that exile had not erased. Daniel's body lived under a foreign king. His heart remained before the God of Israel. As he had done aforetime, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day, and prayed and gave thanks before his God. The decree had changed the danger around Daniel. It did not change Daniel's God. It did not change Daniel's prayer. He did not make a performance of defiance. He did not go to the street and shout for attention. He simply continued in the faithful rhythm that had shaped his life. Morning, noon, and evening he knelt. He prayed. He gave thanks. The windows remained open toward Jerusalem. The jealous men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. The trap had closed exactly as they intended. The men went quickly to the king. First they reminded Darius of the decree. Had he not signed a law that every person who asked a petition of any god or man within 30 days, except of the king, should be cast into the den of lions? The king answered that the thing was true, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not. Then they named Daniel. They did not speak of his years of service. They did not speak of the excellent spirit in him. They did not speak of his faithfulness in the affairs of the kingdom. They called him Daniel, of the children of the captivity of Judah, and said that he regarded not the king, nor the decree that the king had signed, but made his petition 3 times a day. Darius saw too late what had been done. He was sore displeased with himself. The decree that had sounded like honor had become a snare. His own signature had been used against the best servant in his realm. Darius set his heart on Daniel to deliver him. Until the going down of the sun, he labored to rescue him. The day must have felt long. Daniel had been found praying. The accusers pressed the law. The king searched for a way out. Perhaps he considered the wording, the authority of the throne, the customs of the empire, the counsel of his officials. But the men returned again and reminded him that no decree or statute established by the king could be changed. Even a king may find himself trapped by his own pride and by the laws he has signed. At last, when the sun had gone down and no deliverance had been found by human power, the command was given. Daniel was brought and cast into the den of lions. The story can be told quietly. The den was a place of danger, a place meant to seal away those condemned by royal judgment. Lions were kept there, strong and fierce by nature. Daniel was lowered into the darkness of that place, away from the court, away from the rooms where he had served, away from the open windows where he had prayed. Darius spoke to him before the den was closed. Thy God whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. It was a remarkable word from the king. He had not been able to save Daniel, but he had seen enough of Daniel's life to know that Daniel served God continually, not occasionally, not only when it was easy, not only when the decree was safe, continually. A stone was brought and laid upon the mouth of the den. The king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of his lords, that the purpose concerning Daniel might not be changed. The sealing made the den official and final in the eyes of the kingdom. No servant could quietly open it in the night. No friend could undo what had been decreed. Daniel was left in the den. The king returned to his palace. That night, Darius could not rest. The palace still held all the comforts of royalty. There were chambers, servants, lamps, food, and music if the king desired it. But Darius wanted none of it. Scripture says he passed the night fasting. Instruments of music were not brought before him. His sleep went from him. The king's body lay in the palace, but his mind was at the den. He had seen Daniel's face. He had heard the accusation. He had spoken the words, "Thy God whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee." Now the night stretched long, and the king had no power to change what had been done. Daniel's night is told with great restraint. Scripture does not fill the hours with noise. It does not describe fear in detail. It does not turn the den into spectacle. It simply leaves Daniel there beneath the care of God. The lions were present. The stone was at the mouth of the den. The seal remained unbroken, and the Lord was not absent. Somewhere in that darkness, God sent his angel. The angel did not need to shine for the whole city to see. He did not need to make the palace tremble. The work of God in the den was enough. The mouths of the lions were shut. Their strength was restrained. Their hunger did not rule the night. Daniel remained unharmed. The den that had been meant for death became a place of witness. Daniel, who had knelt beside open windows, now rested under the guard of God. The lions, made by the Lord and held by his command, did not touch him. Around him was the quiet of the night. Above him was the sealed stone. Beyond him, in the palace, the king could not sleep. Dawn came slowly. At the first light of morning, Darius arose very early. He went in haste to the den of lions. The king, who had walked back to his palace in sorrow, now hurried through the morning air. The night had ended, but the question in his heart remained. Had Daniel's God delivered him? Had the servant who prayed toward Jerusalem been kept alive? Had the God whom Daniel served continually answered in the sealed place? When Darius came near to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice, "O Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God, whom thou servest continually, able to deliver thee from the lions?" The title is beautiful on the king's lips, servant of the living God. Darius had many servants. He ruled many provinces. He had officials, princes, counselors, and guards. But Daniel belonged first to the living God. That truth had been visible in his work, his prayer, his courage, and now in the king's cry at the mouth of the den. Then a voice answered from below. Daniel was alive. Scripture gives his answer in words of quiet deliverance. "My God hath sent his angel, and hath shut the lions' mouths, that they have not hurt me. Forasmuch as before him innocency was found in me, and also before thee, O king, have I done no hurt. My God hath sent his angel." Daniel did not credit chance. He did not say the lions had merely slept, or that he had been fortunate, or that his own courage had conquered the night. He named the mercy of God. The Lord had sent his angel. The lions' mouths had been shut. Daniel had not been hurt. He also spoke truthfully of his innocence. Before God, innocence was found in him. Before the king, he had done no hurt. His prayer had not been rebellion against righteous rule. His faithfulness to God had not made him a traitor to his earthly office. The accusations had been false. Daniel had served well. Then the king was exceeding glad for him. Darius commanded that Daniel should be taken up out of the den. When Daniel was brought up, no manner of hurt was found upon him, because he believed in his God. That is the quiet center of the story, because he believed in his God. Daniel had believed when he was young in Babylon. He had believed when kings demanded answers. He had believed when an empire changed. He had believed when the decree was signed. He had believed when he knelt 3 times a day with his windows open toward Jerusalem. He had believed when he was brought to the den, and through the night, the God in whom he believed kept him. After Daniel was delivered, Darius wrote to all people, nations and languages that dwelt in all the earth. The king who had signed a proud decree now sent out a better word. He commanded that in every dominion of his kingdom people should tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. Darius declared that Daniel's God is the living God and steadfast forever. His kingdom is that which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. He delivereth and rescueth. He worketh signs and wonders in heaven and in earth. He had delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. The decree travelled where Daniel could not travel. Across provinces, roads, rivers, and cities, the word went out. The king bore witness that the God of Daniel lives and reigns. Earthly kingdoms rise and pass. Royal laws are written and sealed. Princes envy, men flatter, thrones shift, but the living God remains steadfast forever. Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. The story rests at morning. The stone has been moved from the mouth of the den. The king's anxious cry has been answered by Daniel's living voice. The lions are quiet. The angel's work is done without display. The faithful servant stands unharmed in the light of dawn. We may picture Daniel near a sleeping lion, not because the lion has ceased to be a lion, but because the Lord has commanded peace. The danger was real, and the deliverance was real. The same God who heard Daniel beside the open windows kept him beneath the sealed stone. Daniel did not know when he knelt in his house exactly how the Lord would answer. He knew only that prayer to God could not be set aside by the fear of men. He prayed as he had done before. He gave thanks. He trusted the living God. And at dawn, from the mouth of the den, the king heard that trust answered. My God hath sent his angel. The lions' mouths were shut. No hurt was found upon Daniel. The light came into the den, and the servant of the living God was brought up in peace.